The Cincinnati Reds are a disgrace, and we have a lot of guys on the move to talk about. Hope you'll join us today on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by WinBet. Clay Link here with RotoWire's lead prospect analyst, James Anderson. James, a 180 from last week. We got baseball and we got moves. So, I was pretty bitter earlier this week about the Reds, and I still kind of am. But then we lost the bad guy, Razor Ramon. You probably saw, and that kind of just puts things in perspective. Yeah, I'm mad that my team is cheap, but it's not such a big deal in the grand scheme of things.
You should just do what I do and mostly root for your fantasy teams.
Yeah, I think that. I was also considering a move to the Twins fandom. I don't think I can jump on the Brewers just because, I don't know. I feel like interdivision would be kind of gross to do that. But my fandom's dwindling for the Reds. I'll probably still stick by them because I'm a sucker and I've liked them my whole life. But they have made many moves, and they pulled off another one right before we came on the show. Did you see that? Mike Minor they acquired for Amir Garrett. Pretty exciting stuff.
That didn't really register for me.
But getting rid of Winker, I kind of wonder if Winker, with him like rushing himself back from that injury last year, I don't know. I feel like there may be that relationship kind of soured down the stretch, but there's maybe something weird there going on with that injury. But how do you think they did? We'll start with the Suarez and Winker trade. How do you think they did getting Brandon Williamson, Jake Fraley, and Justin Dunn? Hit me with it.
I think that they did okay. It's definitely been a buyer's market so far this offseason. So I don't think any of these teams cleaned up with any of their moves. The teams that are just being cheap and trading all their good players. But I love Williamson. Like him a little less now that he's a Red for fantasy, but maybe that helps him get to the majors quicker. We talked about him plenty on the show. I talked about him with Jeff Ponce when he was on as well. I would definitely recommend going back and listening on that if you didn't catch that episode. But he's an ascendant pitching prospect with full pitch mix, good size, really looks the part, good command. Not a ton to really nitpick with him. And he was really solid at Double-A last year. Hasn't pitched at Triple-A yet, but I think given the way that they're clearing out space, I would expect him to debut maybe in June or July if he stays healthy. With Jake Fraley, Fraley's a guy that I've liked for a while. The biggest knock on him for me is just that he has really had a hard time staying healthy. And I think a lot of the injuries and missed time have kind of added up and prevented him from really kind of developing into the best version of himself. But he has still shown flashes as recently as last season of being a potential leadoff hitter, especially against right-handed pitching. I mean, I think he's a good athlete. He can play multiple spots in the outfield. Certainly a nice park upgrade for Fraley. So, one of the big things to focus on, we're going to talk about Oakland's hauls and their trades as well, but a lot of Reds and A's position players who were not all that fantasy relevant 48 hours ago are now relevant, especially in draft and hold leagues and AL-only leagues, deep mixed leagues. If Fraley is leading off and playing every day in Cincinnati, then all of a sudden he is someone to certainly keep in mind. even in 15-team mixed leagues, because of his speed, he's got a chance to be a double-digit steal guy, double-digit homer guy. Again, the big issue with him is staying healthy. He's kind of had a similar run as a major leaguer as Nick Senzel, where just being available has been his biggest weakness. Justin Dunn, not a guy that I've really ever been that high on, and certainly a park downgrade for him. Maybe a better chance of sticking as a starting pitcher, but I could also see him being a closer long term if things don't work out for him in the rotation.
I hear you. There's a silver lining here with this teardown. It's that it will be the land of opportunity in Cincinnati. And so, yeah, a guy like Jake Fraley, who was kind of, with Seattle kind of entering their competitive window, kind of looked like he'd be phased out or put on the back burners. But in Cincinnati, he can show what he can do. And Brandon Williamson, I feel like we just talked about him on the show recently, but you never love a pitching prospect going to Cincinnati. It's not quite Coors, but
did something happen with your audio?
Can you not hear me?
It just got really low.
I did change an audio setting here. Let me change it back, I guess. Sound a little better now?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, sorry for that. Having a few audio issues in the office recently. Trying to run things through the soundboard, but I guess we'll use the internal mic for now. I guess I don't need this microphone near my face. What about Chase Petty, James, the guy they got back for Sonny Gray? I've heard good things, but a long ways away, right? And kind of, maybe a lot of upside, but is he much more than a lottery ticket, Chase Petty?
No, that was probably the most overwhelming of the trade returns for a notable player. I mean, I know it's hard to second guess teams just on every trade return, but that's not what I would have been looking for Sonny Gray. I don't know what was out there, but when you're talking about a prep righty who, it's every prep righty is going to be risky, but Petty has stuff that goes beyond just the fact that he was a prep righty. I mean, there's reliever risk there. He throws really, really, really hard, too hard, I would say, for a guy his age. Just when you're trying to predict pitcher injuries, he's just absolutely pushing it in terms of the risk quota there. So not a guy that I really expect much from. I thought that was a bad pick by the Twins when they made it. I think that he is just the type of guy that I think a lot of smart teams just shy away from and in the draft. And so, yeah, he throws really hard, but I would just not expect that to amount to anything really.
Man, this is a depressing report from you as far as the Reds haul goes. Their respective hauls with trades with Seattle and Minnesota. And I do think, Gray's he's dealt with some injury issues, but I thought that was a good get for Minnesota, especially because he has an option for 2023. Let's talk about the trade that went down this morning for Matt Chapman going to Toronto Blue Jays. What a big park upgrade that is for him. And then going out to Oakland, Gunnar Hoglund, Kevin Smith, Zach Loge. Is that how you pronounce that? L-O-G-U-E?
I don't know. Load. I don't know. L-O-G-U-E.
Something like that. But yeah, what do you think of that haul for Chapman? Great defender, iffy bat, but heck of a player because of those defensive contributions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a super fascinating acquisition by Toronto, specifically how much it's going to help their pitching staff. There was a pretty interesting tweet that I saw from I want to make sure I give the credit to Ben Palmer from Pitcher List had a good thread of images from Baseball Savant that showed where the Blue Jays starters allow the most ground balls, and obviously most starters are going to allow more ground balls to the left side of the infield than the right side of the infield, but Hyunjin Ryu, Yusei Kikuchi, and Alek Manoah really, really generate a ton of ground balls on the left side and in the third base area. And Matt Chapman is just an absolute all-world defender. So I'd give all those Blue Jay starters a bump after this trade. As for the haul that the A's got, I thought it was about right. Again, it's a buyer's market right now. Teams are clutching on to their top prospects, so I don't think we saw a single. The only top 100 prospect to get moved in any of these trades was Brandon Williamson. Gunnar Hoglund, not a top 100 prospect, but he might have been a top 100 prospect if he hadn't needed Tommy John surgery his last year in college, and that's why he slid to the Blue Jays where he did in the late first round. I think he had Tommy John surgery in May, so I would expect Hoglund to be back and pitching in games in July or August, maybe. They're probably going to ease him along. Maybe he just heads to a complex league affiliate, but he's got a pretty high ceiling. I mean, sometimes we see these guys come back from Tommy John, and all of a sudden they're just rocking up the rankings. So that'll be exciting to sort of see what he does once he gets healthy, assuming he makes it all the way back. Kevin Smith, kind of the infield version of Jake Fraley, where he just wasn't all that interesting prior to this trade, and not a prospect that I was really all that high on at all, just given how old he was and how bad the pitching at AAA was last year. It was tough to really take his production there seriously. But now that he's with the A's, I definitely expect him to get a decent amount of playing time and a chance for everyday playing time. Like, if he can keep his head above water, I could see him pushing over 400 plate appearances pretty easily. And, he might already be better than Elvis Andrews, which isn't a high bar to clear right now, but just makes him relevant, especially in deeper leagues. Like, I don't think you're going to get a good batting average. Maybe it's like 230, but he could get you double-digit homers, double-digit steals. I would assume the A's will be letting all their players run as much as they want this year. And then Zach Logue, he goes from very uninteresting to slightly interesting here. He's basically big league ready. Lefty with a good changeup. Had a lot of success at AAA last year. Projects as more of like a number 5 starter swingman type, but he could challenge for a spot in that rotation. I mean, that they don't have a ton of established starters there, and I would expect Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea to be on the move as well. So, I mean, you could see this just really increasing the fantasy value of Smith and Logue, because they go from one of the best teams in the game to one of the worst teams, and that should give them an opportunity to sort of show what they have. And then Kirby Snead, I mean, he's not really a prospect, he's a reliever, but as I think we've talked about either on this podcast or on the radio show, Oakland's bullpen depth is really embarrassing, and it wouldn't take a lot for Snead to pitch his way into high leverage work in that bullpen. So, I think it takes 3 guys from really kind of off of my redraft radar to at least players that I'll be following along to how they perform in spring training.
And as somebody who has a lot of Alek Manoah, I'm sure you're very happy about this Chapman move. Do you see yourself going back to the well with Kikuchi now that he's in this situation? I feel like we drafted him in every league we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, Kikuchi's stock has really been bolstered by him not only signing with Toronto, but getting Chapman added to that defense. I think the question now is just, where is Kikuchi's ADP going to settle? Because, if you ended up with Kikuchi in the mid 300s in early drafts, that's looking like a big time value. I think
go take a lap around the neighborhood right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, a winning
he
pick.
might be going in the mid 200s now. His ADP could legitimately climb like 100 spots. I don't know if I would take him there. Like Kikuchi versus Eric Lauer is close for me. So I might not. I could see myself being in some drafts and having Kikuchi in the queue, and he goes a little ahead of where I was expecting, and I was just kind of like, all right, well, on to the next guy. But I think it's a great landing spot for him, and obviously feeling good about those Manoah shares. Don't want to get too high on that though, because there's a lot of spring training left, and it seems like every 4 hours some pitcher who is healthy is no longer healthy. So got to be careful.
Well, not just pitchers too. I mean, the Tatis news is pretty huge, shaking up the first round of drafts. Underwent surgery today. I bumped him way down. So Jeff had him like in the 50s. Do we know how long this recovery is going to be for Tatis Jr.?
I think like 3 months.
Oh God! So yeah, I had him like 150, but even that probably have to help him. Out 3 months. Yikes! That's a tough break for the pods, and for dynasty managers who have Tatis. But back to Oakland, the second of their big three with the trades was trading Matt Olsen. I guess it was the second in chronological order, because they traded Bassett first, and I think Olsen, then Chapman. And they get Shea Langoliers, Christian Pache, Ryan Cusick, Joey Estes. I hear Estes has kind of been a riser, but what do you think of this haul for Matt Olsen?
This one was, this was the best package, probably. Best real life package, I should say. I mean, all four of these prospects are more valuable in real life than they are in Dynasty for various reasons. We talk about it all the time with catching prospects. Unless you're even Adley Rutschman's more valuable in real life than he is in fantasy. But every catching prospect who is average or better defensively is going to be prized much more highly by big league teams than he is in Dynasty. And we've seen the prospect kind of analysis industry shift so far towards fantasy and dynasty analysis that I think a lot of people just view these guys based on where they rank on fantasy and dynasty lists. Langoliers and Pache play the two most coveted positions, probably. I think a lot of teams value catcher the most. Then it's center field, shortstop, take your pick. But teams really, really care about catcher, shortstop, and center field defense. Langoliers is probably an above average catcher defensively. Pache might be an 80 grade defender in center. And so those are just massive tools that don't really count for much in fantasy, but they count a ton to a big league team. And, Pache is not someone who I believe in as a hitter. And I didn't expect him to ever get a chance to really develop as a hitter on a team as good as Atlanta. But now that he's with Oakland, he's probably going to get, 800 plate appearances to just kind of struggle until they try something else. Like it's going to be kind of a Victor Robles length leash in terms of just getting a chance to develop into a solid hitter because of how good he is defensively. So he might not be that helpful this year. He'll be allowed to run more with Oakland, though, than he would have with any other team. So it's another guy, if you're looking for cheap speed, I don't think it's going to come with a good average at all. I think he probably hits 220 or worse. But, it could come with double-digit steals, double-digit homers, a lot of playing time. Ryan Cusick is a guy with a ton of bullpen risk, but big-time strikeout stuff. I would expect them to keep him on a starting pitching track now for the foreseeable future, though. So, the A's have added a ton of pitching in these three trades, and Cusick is probably a year and a half to 2 years away from the majors, but strikeout rate over 50% at low A last year in a small sample, so he's got some upside. And then Estes, yeah, like I think Estes, just if we're looking at the skills and the trajectory, I might be most excited by him, but he's a pitching prospect who's 3 years away from the majors. So he's obviously not all that desirable in Dynasty just based on that. I like him as a young pitcher, but I just, any pitcher who's that far away from the majors, so much can go wrong. But if we're just talking, if you're like an Oakland A's fan, I wouldn't recommend watching this team very much this year. But you at least can take solace in knowing that you got 4 real prospects back for Olsen.
And then Atlanta wrapping him up long-term, 8-year deal for Matt Olsen. So a long-term replacement for Freddie Freeman. We'll see where he ends up. We got to take care of a little bit of business, and we'll talk about the two guys involved in the Bassett deal and touch on a lot of quick hitters. Let's first take care of that piece of business. We'll be back after these messages. And now we are back on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by the kind folks at WinBet. And, Bassett to the Mets. And they get JT Ginn, Adam Oler. Don't know much about either of these two. Any reason to be excited or not so much?
I mean, Ginn's good. Top 175 prospect. Another guy that had Tommy John surgery and slipped in the draft because of that, but he's a year ahead of Gunnar Hoglund in terms of his recovery. He did return to game action last year. So healthy, big time sinker slider combo. He's going to generate a ton of ground balls. I think there's room for him to continue to improve. But probably don't see him till 2023 at the earliest, despite the fact that he turns 23 in May. So that's a good get. Adam Oler, kind of like Zach Logue, where not really a fantasy relevant prospect prior to this trade, and he's probably not going to amount to much. But just like Logue, he's basically big league ready. He's 27 years old. He's on the 40-man roster. He made 8 starts at AAA last year, had decent results, even though they don't seem that sustainable. Probably more of a long reliever long term, but Oler and Logue probably combined for double-digit starts in the majors this year. They will probably be more relevant as just guys that you want to be streaming hitters against, but innings are innings in some leagues, and I think that these guys will get a shot to show what they have.
Well, good stuff, James. Appreciate your insights into the players moved so far since the lockout was lifted. Let's touch on a variety of kind of random topics here. You put together a list of some good topics here that we could touch on, including the new CBA and how it affects service time manipulation, if at all. Could you clue us into how that's changed, if it really has?
Yeah, kind of. We were able to touch on this on Farm Friday on the XM show right after the lockout ended, but just wanted to touch on it quickly here. It seems like it's gonna, the results will change, but the process I think will largely stay the same because teams only, like the player only benefits if the player really kind of lives up to expectations and finishes top 2 in the Rookie of the Year voting. And the team, like the odds of any player, no matter how good they are, finishing top 2 in the Rookie of the Year voting, not all that high. Like even on a guy like Chris Bryant or Ronald Acuna, an injury knocks them out. A rough couple of months might knock them out of the Rookie of the Year conversation. So you might see some teams use it as a reason to start a guy in the majors, but I think in the vast majority of cases, it probably won't change the behavior by teams a ton. So I think we are going to see some top prospects break camp on opening day rosters. Like I think it's in play for Bobby Witt, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson. I just don't think it's necessarily in play because of these changes in the CBA. Maybe 20% of the reason might be because of these changes, which is better than nothing. But I think these teams are going to do that more so just because they want to do right by the players. And the Tigers, in the Tigers case, they want to try to win as many games as possible this year, which is not something to scoff at, even if they might be a little off base there. It'd be great to see as many guys break camp on their big league rosters as possible. When we're talking about these top prospects, I don't think the CBA did a ton to really address that issue.
Yeah, it seemed like there was so much to address this year with the CBA that kind of, while it is a really important issue, it just kind of had to take a back seat in order for them to address the other issues and get a deal done. I want to see how those two big Reds arms too, if they're in the mix for opening day, Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. So Dave Bell said he thinks Hunter Green's ready. So, if they at least start with those two guys, that would ease the pain ever so slightly from the last few days. One guy who almost certainly will not be beginning on the opening day roster, but not because of service time rules, but due to a tricep strain. Adley Rutschman shut down, pretty much doing away with any shot he had to be with Baltimore on opening day.
Yeah, this one really matters for his redraft value. I think that they are BSing with this 2 to 3 week timetable. Like I don't really buy that at all, just given the nature of the injury, a right tricep strain for a catcher. Like he might not play in any games during big league spring training. If that happens, he will almost certainly have to go on some sort of a rehab assignment, right, to basically have his spring training in the minors. So he might not play in big league games until sometime in May. And I think you really got to consider that as I would say the odds are he doesn't make his big league debut till May. So I think you got to factor that in with Rutschman, even with this 2 to 3 week timetable the team is giving. I think you really got to be aware of the fact that you might be without him for 6 weeks even. So he's basically off my board. I know that the public will not downgrade him that much, so he's just not going to slip to an area where I would be comfortable taking him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think actually I'm going to bump him off my top 300 entirely right now because I'm with you. I just, in the online championship, I couldn't see taking that chance on the guy who's hurt. Don't know when he's going to be up. So yeah, he's going to be outside my top 300 for the time being. Adley Rutschman, that is too bad. Again, tricep strain, shut down for the Orioles' top prospect. And then we were talking about the moves, or at least the Sonny Gray move. The Twins have been pretty active aside from that trade. And they're clearing space, not just for Jose Miranda, but that's one of the benefits of it. Looks like he's now got an opportunity to play.
Yeah, that's exactly what part of the motivation here, I think, was. I mean, I don't think you're seeing a Twins team that's trying to tank. They're just trying to sort of reallocate resources. They had Josh Donaldson fully healthy. Who knows how much longer that was going to last? So they get off of his contract, and they free up. They at least get one piece out of the way for Jose Miranda. They add Gio Urshela into the mix, but Gio Urshela is not going to stand in Jose Miranda's way the same way that Josh Donaldson might have. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many moving pieces on this depth chart. It's really tricky to kind of figure out who's going to be in a platoon, who's going to be in a bench role, who's going to play every day. I think Byron Buxton's going to play every day when he's healthy. Jorge Polanco is going to play every day when he's healthy. That might be the end of the list. Like, I think Alex Kirilloff will play every day, but I don't know that to be a fact. Luis Arias and Kepler will certainly play against righties. I'm not even sold that Gary Sanchez plays more than Ryan Jeffers. I know that the Twins are saying that they are going to play him at DH and stuff, and they're all excited. But the Twins don't have like the Yankees had like a decade invested into developing Gary Sanchez and trying to make Gary Sanchez the best player they possibly could. The Twins traded for him, but they have no real loyalty to Gary Sanchez, and he's played bad enough for many stretches of recent seasons where he could fall out of favor there in a hurry, and he's not a good defender. Ryan Jeffers is a good defender. I think I would take Jeffers over Gary Sanchez as my second catcher if forced to make that decision. I mean, Sanchez isn't on my board at all, but if he were on my board, he would be behind Ryan Jeffers. And how much does Trevor Larnach play to start the year? Does he even break camp on the big league roster? It's going to be very interesting to see. But if you ended up with Jose Miranda in a draft, I think you should feel better about that now, just because, like, I could see him being their opening day third baseman. That I think that's in play in a way that it wasn't in play before the Donaldson trade.
Nice. Yeah, I hear you, man. The Twins, this retool they're doing, I think is pretty interesting. And I'm with you on Gary Sanchez. I think it kind of boils down to draft philosophy. Like, we just don't want that guy killing the good work we've done building up our batting average base.
I don't like, people talk about doing the Nick Madrigal, Joey Gallo pairing, because then you're getting the Joey Gallo homers and you're helping your batting average with Nick Madrigal and stuff.
They total like two really good players. No, it doesn't work like that.
Just how about just really keep a strength with your batting average. Don't mess around with it. And what if Gary Sanchez is hitting 185 in June? Like, do you just drop him? And then you've just taken that massive hurt in your batting average for a player you dropped in June? And
then your replacement that you pick off the wire is probably going to hit 200 as well.
Yeah. And then Gary Sanchez might have a month where he hits 240 and you dropped him. And it's just not something that's fun at all, messing around with that type of thing at catcher. I'd much rather just give me Yadier Molina and his super boring stats, and I'll know that I at least have a shot in batting average.
Yeah, Carson Kelly. Yeah, that idea that I'm going to pair like Madrigal and Gallo, it just never works like that. So, don't negate all the good work you've done earlier in your draft, building up the batting average base, because that category is so hard to make up ground in, so hard to find plus contributors. So, protect that category with your life. Before we move on, James, I got to take care of a little bit more business here. Hope you'll bear with us, and we'll touch on a few more prospects. Also, to give you information on the Beat James Anderson, the Beat Clay Link, RotoWire Online Championship Leagues. WinBet is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. WinBet brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WinBet's digital casino, take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WinBet is currently available in 9 states: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WinBet, the possibilities are limitless. Register for WinBet today, make a qualifying deposit, and wager to receive $200 in free bets. Promotion may vary by state. Download WinBet now. That's WYNNBET. WinBet, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. Also, experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is an exciting player prop fantasy contest. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up for Thrive Fantasy today and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you can claim your free RotoWire sub. Visit rotowire.com/thrive. Deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Then play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Finally, do you think your betting skills are good enough to win you tickets to the Final Four? It's time to put your money where your mouth is. Better Edge is giving away a trip for two to the Final Four in New Orleans. All you have to do is join their contest at betteredge.com/Final Four. Better Edge believes sports betting with no fees should be the norm, and odds are it's legal in your state. Check it out and enter their March Madness contest for a chance to win a trip to the Final Four. Head on over to betteredge.com/Final Four. That's BETTOR edge.com/Final Four. Terms and conditions apply. So, James, we talked about Adley Rutschman. Bad news for him, but the Baltimore Orioles seem to be moving, or at least open to the idea of moving DL Hall aggressively. So that must mean that they think he's close to ready. What do you take away from that news that he can move quickly, DL Hall?
With any prospect, I would just be careful with this type of language. It gets thrown around by managers, even general managers. You're going to be pumped. They're going to always pump up their players, and you're never going to hear a manager publicly say, "Oh man, this guy, like Hunter Green, he probably needs another couple months at least," or DL Hall, man, I don't really see him factoring in this year, right? Like you're not going to see a manager say that. With DL Hall, we already knew like he was going to be fast tracked. Like his arm is kind of a ticking time bomb from a health standpoint that you got to get those bullets going in the big leagues this year. Maybe he's not up until Adley's healthy. They've been kind of moving Hall and Adley and Grayson Rodriguez sort of on a similar timeline, having him throw or catch those guys as much as possible. But just because Hall probably debuts in the first half doesn't mean that you should be like, oh, I got to get this guy on my team. We got to look under the hood a little bit and figure out like how we think he's going to pitch in the majors, what type of role he's going to be in. The command has just been a major issue for him at every stop. His stuff is absolutely electric, so that's great. But I just think he's the type of pitching prospect where he will show some amazing flashes as a rookie. He'll appear on Pitching Ninja and that type of stuff. But I just don't think he'll be reliable at all on a start-to-start basis early on. There'll be like a 12K game against a good team and then a game where he doesn't make it out of the second inning against a bad team following that. And that's assuming that he's even deployed as a starting pitcher as a rookie. Like they might break him in out of the bullpen. Could definitely see them doing that. We've seen other teams with pitchers with better command break guys in out of the bullpen and have success doing that. So a lot of this is just going to be propaganda on these top prospects. And, maybe we're even seeing that with guys like the guys on the Tigers and Bobby Witt, who I alluded to earlier. Like none of these guys are sure things to be up on opening day. But you got to kind of look at the team context. How ready is the player going to be? You got to kind of factor that all in and really weigh all that stuff more heavily than you weigh anything you're hearing from managers during spring training.
Yeah, I think that's well put. You're going to hear a lot of noise in spring training. You got to kind of filter it out. I think that's wise words that you gave there. I'm wondering. I assume DL Hall went in AL labor. Do you remember? Probably in the reserves or.
I'd have to look, but I think he did.
Hmm.
I think he did.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's about where I'd put him. Like it's a long shot. And you're right. Like you don't know his role, and you got to keep expectations extremely modest with a young arm like that, especially one in that division. Going to be tough for him to navigate. Sixto Sanchez, we know he's continued to trend downward. Apparently, it's not a new injury, or at least there was that Craig Mish report. Then there were some follow-ups. Apparently, not a new injury, but Sixto's health is still very much up in the air.
Yeah, if you accidentally fall into auto pick in a slow draft, it'll either be Josh Young or Sixto Sanchez who you get stuck with. So he should be completely off your board. I would like he's outside of my top 100 prospects. So if you're in like a shallow league where everyone keeps a couple prospects, something like that, even in a league where every team just keeps 10 prospects, I don't think he's a no-brainer hold. Like the last video we saw of him throwing was maybe the worst video I've ever seen of a pitching prospect throwing, just from a health of the arm standpoint. And
Really?
he certainly didn't want that video getting out. Like that wasn't a hype job or anything. That was just someone found that video and released it, and it looked like his arm was barely attached to his body, and now he's shut down from throwing. Like I would say he pitches fewer than 30 innings in the majors this year. He might not pitch affiliated baseball at all this year. So just if you're holding on to Sixto Sanchez, it better be a deep league, and you better be well aware of the fact that you might get absolutely nothing from it.
Yeah, do not time out. And if you do, just have a queue set in case you do. Like you really shouldn't ever, but at least have some players in your queue in case it does happen, so you're not stuck with Sixto Sanchez or Josh Young. Emerson Hancock also hurt. He's dealing with a minor lat strain. About 3 weeks ago, he sustained it. He's been shut down since. So tough break for him. How much are you downgrading him, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as a minor lat strain for a pitcher. And he was hurt. He was hurt at the end of last year. He was shut down in September. He dealt with shoulder issues prior to that, and then was shut down later. Now he's dealing with another injury, and his stuff had been trending down too. Like he probably peaked his sophomore year in college and hasn't been that same pitcher since then. And there was you see all kinds of just ridiculous rumor scuttlebutt on prospects this time of year, and there was one just absurd one that I saw on like Pirates Twitter a month ago or something, where they were shopping Brian Reynolds to the Mariners and were asking for Emerson Hancock. Like they're like the Mariners couldn't get much of anything for Emerson Hancock right now, I don't think, especially just given the trade market. So they're just gonna hold him and try to get him healthy and try to get him right. But he's not really on the radar for 2022.
It's weird what losing will do to your brain as a fan. But no, I saw some Pirates fans too, and no disrespect to whoever tweeted this, but they're like, if we trade Brian Reynolds, I don't want, Joe Musgrove and Colin Moran and whoever else they got. I want 4 Joe Musgroves. It's like, no, I'm getting 4 Joe Musgroves for one Brian Reynolds. James, when is your Beat James Anderson League? I know it's coming up.
That's this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So afternoon draft. I looked at the forecast. It was supposedly, it's saying it's 57 and sunny, supposedly in Madison on Sunday. And if that is the case, I will be drafting in my Three Seasons porch, possibly even on my back porch, which would be fully outdoors. Just a classic Wisconsinite, really treating the 50-degree sunny weather like it's an 80-degree day in the spring.
Dude, it does feel amazing today. Like today's in the 50s too. It feels like it's 80. Quite
if
frankly.
you don't have anything going on next Sunday, please hop in there. And that goes for, I remember one year Vlad Sedler, I think unknowingly, but he did it nonetheless, hopped in the Beat James Anderson online championship and welcome all comers. I already saw that Phil Dussault hopped in my solo main event in Vegas.
No.
So there's.
Well, you welcome the competition. That's. But you never love to see the robot.
I would prefer to have as weak of a room as possible for all of my NFBC drafts. I'll just.
I hear you. But there's no. You don't find that in the main.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think Phil would also prefer to have as weak of a room as possible, and so I think he jumped right into that one.
No, come on. I think he just enjoys the camaraderie, but yeah, that's never something you want to see, the robot jumping in. I have one other person in my Kevin Coleman, not exactly sure who that is, but my online championship is a week from tomorrow, so March 24th at 10 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join, 350 sign up. I think the overall is north of $100,000 for the OC. So join it if you can. Take a shot at that overall prize and try to take me down. That shouldn't be too tall of a task, quite frankly. Looking forward to that and your trip to Vegas, James, in a few weeks. Good luck. And look forward to your full report coming out of that. And yeah, we'll be back on Farm Friday, but then no Saturday XM show with you and I this week. I will be hosting though the Zoom panel for Tout Wars on Saturday. So if you all want to stop by and hang out, I'll be just commenting here and there on the selection. So then I'll be taking part in the Tout Wars head-to-head points on Sunday. So that'll be a lot of fun. Busy couple of weeks, and hope you'll be with us through opening day and beyond. So, James, thanks a ton. Anything else? I may have already asked you that.
No, just join my league on Sunday afternoon, and it'll be a good time. We'll have some day beers and draft some full team fantasy baseball squads.
Hopefully you can do that on the porch, man. Hopefully we stay in the 50s. We don't dip below here in Madison again. Thank you all. Good luck in your drafts the rest of the draft season. Hope you'll join us next week on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by WinBet.